Welcome back to Marvel Good Yay, the spinoff of the Geek Easy podcast, where we're going back to watch all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films leading up to the release of Avengers Endgame. I'm Pixel Dan.
Jonathan Leonard.
And Jerry McCaffrey.
And today we are discussing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
It's good coffee, dude.
Okay, good. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Thank you.
Also, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is pretty good.
Man.
That's pretty good.
Man, I love Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
I don't know if I should just dive right into. We caught up to each other at the halfway mark of me watching this. Like, I had to pause it at one point, and you guys started talking about how great it was, and I said out loud, "All right, I'm looking forward to this episode because I'll get to play devil's advocate for once." And then I went back home and watched the second half of Guardians 2. I don't need to talk anymore.
Yeah.
I'll just be quiet now.
Just so good. I mean, the Guardians movies just are such a standout for the entire MCU. And this is one of the ones I've seen a whole bunch, kind of like the first one.
Yeah.
It's just one of those ones that's so easy to put on and watch all the time. So I've seen it so many times, but I just love it every time.
Yeah.
I love it every time. And it's got like the right, like emotional kind of like heartstring tugging moments that still get you every time you watch it, no matter how much you've seen it. I mean,
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, this has got to be the feelinist Marvel movie, right?
It's definitely got to be up there.
Yeah.
In fact,
I felt it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of anything right now that like stands out above that. I mean, we've definitely had like different kinds of feels from different movies, right? Like,
For sure.
like the first Avengers was the one that gave us like the first like real like tingly feel good, like that kind of feels. But you know, like I would say Infinity War kind of gives you that at the end a little bit, but not in the same sense as this movie.
Right.
But it definitely does kind of give you that somber, sad kind of, oh no.
Some of the things that would hit those notes can't because there are other movies, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there would have been a lot of weight to Bucky falling off of that train if you weren't sure Bucky was coming back, you know? There would have been a lot of weight to...
I would disagree with that.
We weren't that attached to Bucky, I don't think.
Well,
Bucky
was,
that
point.
Bucky was just this side of being an extra in that first movie.
Fair enough. But, like, I don't know, maybe they could have played it different then, possibly. But I'm saying, like, there could have been a level of importance to that there automatically wasn't because you knew right away there's going to be more to this anyway, you know? Peggy Carter's funeral would have had a lot more, and that did have a decent amount of weight to it, but it would have had a lot more if she didn't show up in other movies and flashbacks, she didn't have her own show, all this other stuff. There's a lot of outside factors to it. There's a bunch of stuff that happens in Guardians that I have no reason to assume aren't final moments, you know, and therefore they really get you.
Yeah.
And even some of the, you know, we'll skip right to the end. You know, like, I mean, Peter loses two father figures in this movie.
Right.
One of them he just gained an hour before.
Yep.
But even that one who turns out to be the evil bad guy, like, that's still a thing he's been searching for forever. And then he finds it and then loses it immediately. Right. And then he figures out that he's also had it the entire time. And as soon as he figures that out, loses it immediately, too. Like, that's heavy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's no, you know, well, Guardians 3, Yondu will probably be back, because he probably won't be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're probably. I would imagine that there's no reason to do that at this point, right?
Yeah,
like
I would think.
He had such a strong showing in this movie that I would be kind of upset if he came back. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of those ones that, like, there's a real meaning and a purpose behind his, you know, finality that, like, I don't want them to mess that up.
He's Mary Poppins, y'all.
He is Mary Poppins, y'all. All right, before we get any further into this, you want to give us some movie stats?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me check my movie stats that are very small. That's a $200 million budget.
That's not very small.
Stall for me, guys.
Oh.
So, Danny, how are you? How did you feel about... Oh, you ready, John?
They're much bigger now.
That's a $200
He had to put his glasses on.
$200 million budget.
Oh, boy.
For a domestic gross of $389 million, foreign gross of $473 million, worldwide cum of $863.7 million, which is only about $100 or so million more than Guardians 1. But yeah, a lot of times the second movie gets a huge bump, especially if the first one's popular. But I think the first one had such long legs that even with the bump, it was hard to get much past it. You know?
Yeah.
So, a lot of money.
A lot of money. You can read that okay now you got your bifocals on?
You're
old.
They're just regular glasses.
You good Poindexter? Oh, only about 100,000 million more.
Jeez.
I was gonna restrain myself, but then Danny said something, so you can blame him for that one.
We want to apologize to all the Poindexters out there watching our show.
We've got your back.
Everybody wearing bifocals.
They're not bifocals. Do you know what a bifocal is?
Yeah.
Do you think that's just a word that means glasses?
Benjamin Franklin invented them. All right. So anyway, this movie's got a raccoon in it.
A trash panda.
A trash panda. Yeah.
A triangle-faced monkey.
Triangle-faced monkey.
Said I meant trash panda.
It's so much worse. Can I pet your puppy? Yes.
I feel like we're gonna need to edit this and just start like we're.
Nope, this is probably,
we've just gone completely off the rails.
We're
here.
just
probably
All right,
what
hold
the
on.
people
We're
want.
just gonna quote. We're gonna do quotes now for the rest.
Just
of
quote
the
it.
we might as well, man.
I
There's
could,
not-
man.
I'm also a big fan of. Oh, the grumpy puppy's so cute. I want to die. Mantis is awesome.
Mantis is good.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, that's a good thing to talk about too. We get the crew back, but they do a good job of introducing new characters in this movie too. Plus, I mean, we've already talked a little bit about Yondu, but he gets so much more depth in this movie than the first movie, which is just so welcome and awesome and handled so well.
I love Michael Rooker.
Yeah, me too. And I think everybody liked him in the first movie, but he was totally kind of like a
Space Merle.
Well, yeah, Space Merle. Yeah. I mean, they kind of played him like a sub-villain almost. Like, he wasn't quite a villain. He was totally like on the fringe there.
Hey, he was antagonistic.
Exactly. So he was almost like a side story that was happening throughout the course of the first movie. And this movie, we really get a lot to the character, which is great. We get to really explore Yondu a little bit.
And they put the big fin on.
He got the big fin. Yes. Yep.
So happy about the big fin.
Yeah, me too, man. He looked good with it. Gave him that a little bit more of a comic book look. He still isn't quite there, but that was a great nod for the old comic book fans of the character. But also, we really get introduced to the Ravagers and stuff in this too, which is more great comic book references, right, for Guardians of the Galaxy readers, which isn't me specifically because I didn't know any of this beforehand. I think you pointed out to me the first time we saw it that you recognized some of the names or something of the Ravagers, right?
Yeah, because some of those guys were on the team that when I used to read the books. Or at least were characters that were involved, if they weren't directly on the team. And then there was a bunch of characters I didn't know of either through Guardians lore that I wasn't a part of, because Guardians is one of those things that's had 3 or 4 different iterations. So different people at different generations know of them as different things. And everybody got a little taste of what they knew. The 9 people who who had read a bunch of Guardians before, and that's not an insult in this case. Sometimes when I joke about that, it's me running down characters I think are dumb. I was one of the 9 people in this case. I really dug the Guardians that I used to read, but it wasn't ever a huge fan base. But it's a nice throw out to that. It's a nod to that, and it doesn't take away at all for people who don't know or care. People who don't know or care, in fact, are still getting something they can appreciate because their cameo isn't Charlie 27, their cameo is Ving Rhames. Even if you don't know who Sylvester Stallone was playing, you still know it was Sylvester Stallone. That's neat.
Right, so. Yeah, totally. Didn't Miley Cyrus do a voice too?
Yeah, she was at the one it was like a little robot thing or something at the very end when Sylvester Stallone was getting the original team back together.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that was one of the 5 post-credit scenes in this. Is their little. That was a big nod to the original Guardians of the Galaxy, right? He was getting
I think that was the original, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I believe was even before I was reading it.
That's crazy. That's nuts. Yes. There's too much going on in that lore that I just don't know about. All right, so we're skipping all over the place, but you guys are following it, I'm sure. Yeah. You've seen this movie before. But we talk about that opening scene, the way they kind of introduced the movie.
Oh, that was neat.
I think that is such a fun It's like we're just kind of catching up to them pretty much exactly where we left off with the characters. I mean, obviously they've been around and doing their thing a little bit more in between, but like it's neat to just kind of jump straight back in and see them acting.
Well, I like how they are basically a band of heroes for hire.
Yeah,
and I mean they carry that even all the way through Infinity War when they show up. They're having the same conversation about why are we doing this? Because we'll make money and help people. That's fine. And that's basically what they're doing at the start of this. They're trying to protect these batteries.
They're called Harbulary batteries.
Obviously, I know.
Harbulary
I was
batteries.
getting to that.
That is not what they were called. Harbulary batteries. That's my favorite part is when he repeats it directly after.
Yeah.
What are these things called again?
Amulex batteries.
Harbulary batteries. That is not what I just said. Drax is amazing, dude. Oh my god.
But they basically get hired by this race to protect these things from this weird space octopus, whatever that was.
Interdimensional.
Oh, my bad. My bad. I'm just screwing this all up. Told you I should just sit here and not talk anymore.
Well, we get the music right off the bat too, because like Rocket is specifically like setting up speakers so that they can play the music while they battle. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Isn't that where they argue? Because he's like, Quill's the one who likes the music so much, and Quill's like, no, I also think this is a terrible idea.
And Baby Groot dances around throughout the entire fight, but it's just like a lot of great moments throughout this. Like we've got Drax not wearing the jetpack because it chafes his nipples, which is great because they come back to that like way later with a throwaway joke at the end of the movie. But I specifically
Peter got mad because Gamora had a gun.
Yeah. He's like, "Aren't you the sword?"
Yeah.
Thought your thing was swords.
Yeah. I do love the part too where Drax is like, the skin is impenetrable. Yeah. We must tear it apart from the inside, and he just like dives inside of the thing, and he's like, doesn't he know that the skin's thickness is going to be the same on the inside as the outside? And then when they win, he's standing there like in the muck, and he thinks he did it, which is great. That's fantastic. Yeah, the whole opening scene is just fantastic, and it's a perfect introduction to the movie. But I also love here like this race that they are protecting these batteries for at the beginning kind of take the role of almost what Yondu was in the first movie, because now these guys kind of become like this secondary antagonist that's following them throughout the course of the movie.
Except these guys were always tools.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, like fantastically though too. Like when the chick shows up on the planet with they're unrolling the carpet for her. Yeah. She's just like slowly walking on this carpet.
Well, what about how she is like totally down to get it on with Quill?
I know, right?
It just seems so weird, you know. But I think it's also like a really great like way to show that they're tools instantly, you know, because they're kind of presenting them and they're explaining like, oh, we're a superior race and we've risen above and we only breed the best of the best, and he's like, well, I could show you some breeding, and she's like, yeah, really?
Yeah, I know, right?
You know what I mean? Like maybe we could do that for research purposes. You're like, like right away, you're like, oh, okay. Not the Borg.
Not the
Borg. I respect how quick this movie gets right to the point.
Man.
Like, there is no setup. There is just boom into it, you know? It is at breakneck, because right away you get that giant fight, you get that little bit of the scene that we just discussed right there, and then you're back into another giant space fight, and right there in the first, 15 minutes, you already get Kurt Russell riding a spaceship.
Yeah,
and blowing up an entire army.
Is it a little man?
Just waving at him. You know?
Yeah. He's like this big.
I don't know, like an inch? A little 1-inch man saved us. Well, I assume he'd be bigger if he got closer.
Like, sometimes I have to watch it 2 or 3 times before I appreciate the literalness that Drax is conveying, you know? Like, because sometimes I even stop and just think, he's dumb. And then I realize, like, no, he's just He's doing exactly what the character's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Just taking everything very seriously.
Yes. You're like an old woman because I'm wise. At some point, you just got to stop arguing with him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
Oh man! So ultimately, they steal the Harbulary batteries.
Yeah, Rocket
steals them because they're
Which
probably
Drax
worth money.
finds hilarious.
Yeah, he just starts cracking up as they're leaving.
Right.
Which is why I can't even remember the name of this race, but
They're the
Not even sure if I know
Supreme or the Sovereign.
the Sovereign.
that
Yeah,
sounds
okay.
right.
So that's why they're chasing them down, and then they ultimately hire Yondu and the Ravagers to track them down and find them.
You also find out around that time that the Yondu's band of Ravagers have basically been outcast from the other Ravagers because he was shipping kids to
Ego.
Yeah. I don't think you find out the specifics right there by any means.
No,
yet,
no.
But it's
They were basically
I mean-
they were just kind of like, we don't deal in kids. Was kind of what they just kept saying.
Yeah.
Right. So like you can assume it. Like at the time, we could assume it was just Quill.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Peter. I don't know why I always call him Quill. I guess it doesn't matter. But really.
Star-Lord, bro.
Oh yeah.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. So yeah, pretty quickly here then, like we meet Ego, because he's the one that stops them, and then he introduces himself, and they have that.
Hey, Kurt Russell's in the Marvel Universe.
I know, right?
Just throwing that out there.
Yep, he's there.
Not
That's
anymore.
him. Spoiler alert! Not anymore.
Spoiler.
He'll always be there in our hearts. So
Wasn't my spoiler. John said it at the very beginning. This episode is off the
This
the
is
chain,
so off
man.
the rails.
This is off the chain.
But it's cool. Everybody's seen this movie a bunch.
All right, so we find out the Ravagers.
I feel like this is Marvel responding to DC landing Kevin Costner.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, we'll one up you, and your Kevin Costner even sucked.
oh, jeez. Here we go with Man of Steel again.
All right, I'm done.
All right, so ultimately, Ego convinces them to come back to his planet because he.
If they jump right, there's no mystery to any of it. He's like, "Hey,
yeah.
Peter, I'm your dad."
Yeah, well, I mean, they kind of do that, and like Quill kind of questions it, but even Gamora's kind of like, yeah, but wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to find out? We should probably do this. So they kind of split up at this point because Rocket stays behind to fix the ship, while the rest of them go with Ego to the planet.
Well, Rocket and
Groot.
Nebula and Groot.
And Nebula. Oh yeah, because Nebula's prisoner.
Yeah.
That's right. Because that was how they got paid by the Sovereign was
Yep.
with Nebula, because the Sovereign had Nebula.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how Nebula ended up with them. Yeah, so that's what they split that up, and most of them go off to meet Ego's world.
We get a lot of Rocket in the beginning there and around this scene, like really, him and Quill really going at it.
Yeah.
And Rocket getting pretty out of line, I guess I would say. I mean, lightly so, but you can tell he's the aggressor.
Yeah.
And they're really pushing the idea that he's pushing everyone away.
Yep.
You know, which kind of comes back later, but they do a lot of setup there for that.
Yeah.
Around this time.
Yeah, and the Ravagers end up finding them there, which is another great scene too, where Rocket's just like schooling all of the Ravagers for a while.
Man.
Which is amazing.
Yep.
But then Yondu shows up with a sweet arrow and basically gets the upper hand. But this is where we kind of get the same stuff we saw in the first movie with Yondu, where he's got a soft spot for Quill. Mm-hmm. So he decides that instead of turning them into the Sovereign, he's just going to go ahead and take those batteries, which everybody points out is way less money than what the Sovereign was offering. Yeah. So this is where the whole movie...
and that was also because even back when he was having his confrontation with Sylvester Stallone, part of the crew is going on about how Quill is Yondu's soft spot, and every time he gets near, like, you should have killed him a long time ago, or we never should have done this, but we keep having to follow Yondu, and then all he does is bend over backwards for this guy who does nothing but betray him and whatever else. And even Sean Gunn, I don't remember his character's name, James Gunn's brother. The Landy?
No, that's not it. I don't know where I'm getting that.
The other notable Ravager even he is kind of turning on Yondu a bit as of this point, and so when they do find Rocket and they decide they're just going to steal the batteries and that'll be enough, and they weren't going to turn Quill over anyway, and that's when the rest of the Ravagers start to mutiny.
Yep. Led by Taserface.
Taserface. We'll always remember the name Taserface.
Which is one of the best running jokes.
Dude, it's amazing.
Because Rocket immediately just belittles him.
Yeah.
When he calls the Sovereign later. And he's like, when the ship's burning down, and he's like, you make sure they know that it was Taserface.
Yeah, and they're just cracking up.
Yeah, she's just like, really?
Yeah. Kraglin.
Yeah.
Is his name.
That's basically what I said.
Is that Sean Gunn's name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kraglin.
Obviously, it's not Taserface's
It's
name. I don't know why.
Taserface. That's the other
Why
guy.
I asked.
Yeah.
We got a. This gets a little hardcore too for those because you get a little bit of a split between the Ravagers. There's the ones who are still loyal to Yondu, who just immediately get murdered.
Yeah.
Dude, just ejected out into space.
Yeah, and Vile murdered too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They end up just like locking Yondu up, so he's like in jail with Rocket, and then they turn Groot into the mascot. But that leads to some really great scenes though too, like because when they decide that they're gonna use Groot to help them break out, and they're trying to explain to Groot where the fin is, because that's where Yondu needs the fin to control the arrow. So he's like, I got a prototype fin in my room in this drawer. And he tries to explain to him where to get it. Then we just get this extremely long running joke where Groot just keeps bringing everything except for the fin, but it's never stops being funny.
He brings that severed thumb.
Dude,
and they're just staring at it. They're like, please tell me you have a case of thumbs in a refrigerator or something somewhere. And Yondu's just like, nope.
He drags an entire desk that one time.
Right. He brought him Thor's eye, right?
Oh, he did bring an eye.
Yeah.
Is that the eye that
I'm guessing.
Wow.
I forgot they had done that until I watched it in this scene, and I was like, oh, well, that's probably Thor's eye.
It wasn't Thor's eye, because it was that one dude's eye.
It was that dude's eye.
And he's just like, leave it here.
Yeah, leave it. Yeah.
He's going to wake up and not know
where his eye is. Yeah, because Yondu says that he takes his eye out when he sleeps.
Yeah. Well, why wouldn't we assume that's the same one then?
It could be if Rocket kept it, I guess. I didn't even put that together, but I guess that's possible. So that whole thing's pretty hardcore too, because they ended up breaking out, and then Yondu's got the awesome big fin that we talked about, and then just murders his entire crew with the arrow, which is totally
except for Kraglin,
because Kraglin's on his team.
He's the one
that
helped actually bringing him.
He's the one that brought him the fin. Yeah.
And except that dude that Baby Groot murders. Which can we just point out for a second, like, if you have a kid that's like in the beginning he's beating up he's trying to kill those little creatures, and he kills that dude later on, like, there's something wrong with Baby Groot. Like, if you have a child that abuses animals, you don't just like.
There was something kind of wrong with adult Groot. So
well, for sure. Which I think I mentioned when we did Guardians 1, because I watching Guardians 1, I felt like I saw Groot totally different than pre having seen Baby Groot.
Yeah. I'm Groot. The teenage Groot at the end. He cracks me up.
Yeah.
I'm Groot. Don't take that tone with me. So let's jump back over then to
Planet
Ego, and kind of talk about that stuff a little bit, because we get a little bit of foreshadowing that something may not be right with all of this, kind of through Mantis.
Yeah.
Because her and Drax are kind of getting close, which is hilarious, just the way Drax treats Mantis. Yeah. But they're kind of getting close. And as she's getting closer and closer with Drax, she's kind of starting to show that something's wrong, and she wants to tell Drax that there's something wrong. So we're getting a little bit of foreshadowing that something's not right with Ego, kind of through her.
Yeah, we also learn a lot about Mantis along the way and her powers. How she's basically empathic, and she can read people's feelings by touching them. And they even point out how she can, like, Ego keeps her around because she can help him sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's got some pretty strong psychic abilities, at least on short term.
Yeah.
which
Right.
will kind of foreshadow some events later in this movie and in other movies.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. So Ego kind of explains to Peter. Well, like first he tells Peter almost exactly what he wants to hear. Like, you know, that his mother was perfect and that, you know, he was in love with her, but he had to leave. And if he would have gone back to visit her one more time, he knows he would have stayed on Earth or whatever, you know, and basically just really plays that up and kind of tells Peter that he's been searching for him for all this time because he thinks that Peter holds the same power as him. And together they can basically like create all this amazing stuff together and basically gives him the pitch in that form.
They even bond over music.
The music, yep.
Which is neat.
Yeah.
Because as a celestial being, there's still that moment where, you know, Peter immediately kind of can connect with him through the pop culture that he loves.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think a celestial being would know, but he spent so much time on Earth. And
Yeah. Yep, so we get to see him kind of playing with the magic and realizing that he does have some sort of magical abilities, which I believe is kind of they even explain it. That's why he was able to hold the Infinity Stone in the first movie because Ego says that specifically. He's like, when I heard tale of the man that could hold onto an Infinity Stone and not die, I knew that had to be my son.
Yep.
So that's really cool that they made the connection there of why Peter was able to hold it
and how excited Ego got when he did make the energy. Which I mean, we find out why in a little bit, but that's one of those we're going back on rewatches and seeing that reaction.
Yeah.
You know, you kick back and go, that's good acting right there.
So that's basically the setup there, and like I mean, Peter's really getting into it and everything, but it does all start kind of falling apart here at this point because once he does start showing that he's got those abilities, that's when Ego's basically like, all right, let's get to work, and kind of gives him like the real story at this point.
Happens pretty fast.
It does happen pretty quick because at this point he kind of elaborates on all of his story and basically says, you know, well, your mother wasn't the only one. I went seeking life. I went to find, you know, more out there, and then I realized how underwhelming it was. It was so disappointing, and that's kind of when he decided he was going to try to procreate. And so that he could make another celestial being like himself, right? So that he could expand.
I think he was already doing that, and then he needed an heir.
Yeah,
and so he was going planet to planet,
because
trying to mate and create a second of himself.
Well, the whole idea
it kept not working.
Right, and the whole idea, right, is that he was so disappointed that he decided the only thing to do is just make it all him. Right, so he's just
I think that was his plan from the get-go.
Like that he's just going to take over the universe and just like
that was before he started really like when he started expanding out. He was just like, I need more of me.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I need everything to be me.
So we find out that basically he just went from planet to planet, hooking up with alien chicks, making babies.
He always looked like 70s.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I love when they showed that.
Yeah, like he didn't even look like any of the other alien species. He was just always like a humanoid. Yeah, that's so funny. But like as he's explaining this, we're also seeing because like Nebula showed up, which we forgot to mention, and basically tried to gun down Gamora. And they have this big knockout drag-out fight where they end up in these caves where they just find piles of dead bodies.
Which they also have an emotional breakthrough of their own right there.
Yeah,
which I don't want to skip over because this movie hits you in the feels a bunch of times. You know.
Yeah.
Because they finally have their knockdown drag-out and Nebula gets to the point where, you know, well, I think Gamora's like, what did you want from me or something like that. And Nebula's like, I wanted a sister. You know, I didn't want somebody who just wanted to beat me to prove something to Dad. I wanted somebody who was on my side once in a while, you know, as Dad was tearing me apart and rebuilding me after every one of these things. And they kind of have that moment where they both stop, and then I think it's right around at the time they notice all the dead babies.
Yeah, well, dead kids everywhere. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Crazy to think about that, right? So basically, he's been bringing all of his offspring to his planet, finding out if they have powers, and then when they don't, he murders them and then just throws them in a cave somewhere. Yep. So there's just
this is what you realize Yondu was doing, was delivering these kids.
Yes, which would make perfect sense why the Ravagers decided that, to cut him out because this was... And Yondu even says that later, that he didn't know that that's what was happening at first. And once he figured it out, that's why he didn't deliver Quill.
Yep.
So he kind of gets to play innocent there a little bit. Like he didn't realize Ego was just murdering all these kids. So as Ego's explaining all of this and basically tells Peter, like, I knew that I couldn't come back. That's why I had to put that tumor in your mom's head. And so Quill has that realization that, oh, well, you just straight killed my mom just because. And then we have that amazing scene where he just pulls out his blasters and just disintegrates Ego in front of him. Oh my god!
Absolutely adore the immediacy of that reaction.
Yeah. Like no hesitation, man. Just you killed my mom. Boom, 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 boom.
And it's one of the I don't want to get too nitpicky by any means because it's a Marvel movie. It's not what I do. But that didn't make full. If he's basically been around millions of years anyway, and if he's so in love with this Earth woman, you think he could have just killed an extra 60 hanging out with her and then gotten on with his plan, Yeah. I don't know why he was in such a hurry that he had to kill her so he wouldn't go back to Earth. It's not like he would have been trapped there. He would have just hung out with her until she naturally died anyway and then left.
And obviously he didn't get anywhere with his plan in those
exactly.
years, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because this is 30 years later, so now when she would have been dead anyway.
Yeah.
And he made Peter out of the whole thing, which is his ultimate goal anyway.
Right.
He really could have just stayed there, saved himself a lot of trouble, and probably won in the end.
Yeah, well, but he's a bad guy. Bad guys don't think about stuff like that. They're selfish.
That's true.
So this is basically where all heck's breaking loose at this point now because everybody's kind of figured it out on their own, right? Because Mantis has explained it to Batista, to Drax. Mantis has explained it to Drax. Gamora and Nebula figured it out.
Rocket and
Yondu are on their way.
I love the explanation because they get they break away in that ship. They start heading towards Ego's planet because Yondu has told Rocket a little bit about what's going on. They do that great scene there where Yondu's like, you living beings aren't supposed to go through more than 5 jump points in a row. You just set us for 700.
Right.
Yeah.
And they start going through that thing where their faces are just expanding and contorting and
That's so ridiculous.
It killed me. But then they get there and Yondu's like, what is such the big deal anyway? What is such the hurry? And he's like, well, as bad as you said Ego is, we got to get there to save Quill. And Yondu makes some kind of comment about, him saving his friends or whatever. And he's like, that's not why I'm doing this. Yeah. I'll be able to hold this over Quill's head forever now. And we get that great breakthrough moment there with Yondu and Rocket, where Yondu's basically just calls him out on all of his nonsense.
Yeah.
And him trying to push people away and everything he's doing, and basically just flat out tells him, I know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly who you are because you're me.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. So this is a big fight scene here, which their plan is basically they realize that in order to stop Ego, they've got to get to the core and destroy his brain, which is in the center of the planet. Because Ego, of course, is the planet itself, which is great too. Because I remember the casting for this, and all of us kind of trying to figure it out. Because I knew that Ego was a Marvel character as Ego the Living Planet. I knew of that character, and I just remember being like, how are they Kurt Russell's just the planet, or what are they doing with this? So I do gotta say I love the way that they made this work because it's great, and I love it anytime they actually pulled out and showed the planet, and we actually got the face on the planet, just like in the books. It was really neat the way they pulled that whole thing together. So their plan is to get to the core of the planet because that's where his brain is, and that's the only way to stop him is to kill his brain. And as they're going down to do this, that's when the Sovereign just show up and decide to start attacking again because they pinpointed them and found them. So that adds all kinds of extra hassle to the whole thing.
Well, I love too, John. You talked about the immediacy of Quill shooting him to pieces when he says he murders mom. I like when they show up here and they're in that mining thing. And like they show up and Quill's kind of in peril at the moment, and they just kind of rescue him real quick, and they all just jump on that thing and start burning down to the middle. You know what I mean? I like the immediacy there of just all right, let's go. Let's go. We got to go kill this planet now. And even Rocket gets the moment there where he's like, are we saving the galaxy again?
Yeah. 2-time galaxy savers.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll really be able to up our price now.
There's some cool stuff in here though too, because Mantis uses her powers to put him to sleep by one of the big veins basically in the
Yeah.
ground or whatever, and or the nerves, and she's able
Yep.
to like use her powers to put him to sleep to calm him down a little bit. But they're still trying to battle off the Sovereign, so it's making it impossible to actually attack the brain. But also we get the amazing stuff with Groot. Because Groot's got to plant the bomb
Right.
on the actual brain, and I love the exchange in this entire scene. And this is one of those things I remember being in the trailer, and I remember being a little worried that they ruined like the scene with the trailer. But then the scene is just, there's so much more to it in the movie that it doesn't stop being funny at all. Because like he's trying to show Groot which buttons to push, and of course Groot says the wrong one every time. So he asks Quill if he's
For
got
some
any...
reason, there's one button that'll just kill them all.
Yeah, well, it's like one of them's the instant
Yeah.
destruct button, and one of them sets the timer. So Groot keeps pointing at the wrong one, and so he's like, "You got a piece of tape?" Because he wants to put a piece of tape
Right.
over it, and then you just hear like the scene doesn't change, but you hear Peter going around and asking everybody in the middle of the fight. And my favorite is when he gets to Drax, because he asks Drax if he has any tape, and Drax goes, "Is Scotch tape okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, Scotch tape will work." Well, then why did you ask if Scotch tape would work? It's the best.
And I love when he gets back too, and he's like, he's like, nobody's got any tape, and Quill's like, look, you're the one who like bomb making components in your backpack that you're sitting there doing. If anybody's gonna have tape, it's gonna be you.
That scene is just so fantastic.
Well, I also like because then Groot just grabs the bomb and runs off.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, Rocket's just sure they're all gonna die.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's not good. And then every time somebody else is talking to him, he's like, in the extremely unlikely event
Yeah.
that Groot doesn't kill us all.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Oh my gosh. So in that extreme unlikely event happens because Groot actually does plant the bomb like he's supposed to, and he sets the timer. So everybody's on their way out. The Sovereign have all been blowed up at this point.
We get the callback right around, because this is right around where Ego and Peter start fighting big, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they do that.
Well, because they have the thing first where Mantis gets smashed by a piece of.
Oh man, they do the superhero pose.
Mantis, look out!
Yeah, they do the superhero pose, and then that rock just blasts Mantis. Yeah, Mantis, look out! So Drax has got to carry her out of there.
And that's what wakes Ego up.
Yeah.
That's right, and that's what him and
That's
Quill.
that's why he wakes up. Yeah.
Get into it. Because they get it. Because when Ego's explaining what Quill is and what he can do with his powers, and how when he harnesses it, he can just start building things out of himself or whatever. And Quill's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a giant Pac-Man, and I want to make some really weird stuff."
Skeletor was one of the things he said too.
Just going through it, and so then when they have this giant face-off, and they're basically flying at each other, and you can see them like forming things around themselves, and looks like, I think Ego's just basically building himself into like a giant rock, and it looks like that's what Quill's doing. And then
he's a giant Ego.
Yeah.
But like look like rock formation.
Oh, okay.
Kinda,
Well,
Yeah.
And they pan out a little bit, and Quill's turning himself into giant Pac-Man.
Yeah.
We also had that
So
when after Quill blasted Ego, and Ego was getting really mad at him for being ungrateful, and he's like, I tried to take the form that you would like the most, and he does that shift into David Hasselhoff.
Oh yeah.
Who they've been talking about the entire movie, because Quill used to tell people that was his dad.
Yeah.
And the previous movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we should point out too. I think I hear a lot of people complain about the Pac-Man gag, and I'm on their side. I think it's dumb.
I love the
Really?
Pac-Man gag.
Yeah,
I think it's funny.
It really
It was very Quill.
It really yes it is like, and it's the thing I have to say I'm conflicted because I think it's very Quill. I think it's very perfect. As an audience member watching it, it takes me out of it immediately. You know what I mean? Like it creates.
It's supposed to be like a serious fight right here.
Yep.
And
And
I see that.
they stick that gag in there, and it creates a moment where I have to go, Pac-Man, that's funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I have to get back into the movie. So like it bothers me less on repeat watchings. I remember it when I saw it in the theaters being very jarring, like, oh, Pac-Man. And I'm like, because I'm watching and I'm like, get him, Quill, get him, Pac-Man.
Yeah. Maybe if it was Skeletor.
Good joke, guys.
Skeletor would have been better.
I don't know, man. I mean, Like
I still feel like that's exactly what Quill would do in that moment. Like, I don't think you're wrong. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
It doesn't really. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how character appropriate it is if it yanks you out of the movie.
Exactly, and because I agree that it's exactly what Quill probably would have done. And it fit Quill, it fit the movie, but in that moment, it yanks me out a little bit.
I get that.
This movie's subpar.
This subpar. Movie's ruined. Movie's ruined. They slap the jetpack on Drax at this point, and he goes, "My nipples!" as he's flying away. Which is great.
Yeah.
So everybody escapes at this point, except for Quill and Yondu. So the bomb goes off and the brain dies, and I love this is more good acting right here too. Like Ego's scared.
Yeah.
Ego gets very scared at this point because he's gonna die.
Yep.
And it's kind of some cool
probably
emotion.
never has been in his entire existence.
Yeah. So that's a real cool moment too, because he's like begging and pleading for Quill to not do it.
Yeah.
Basically, but it's already too late. That bomb's been set and it goes off, and that's the end of Ego. But of course,
also how about like he put a time bomb in Quill's mom's brain, and they put a time bomb on his brain.
Nice. That's a cool observation that I did not even.
All right,
make.
This movie's back on top.
That's great. That's great.
Totally redeems itself.
Yeah. Wow.
So not only did he get to be scared for the first time and have to face that, but he had to face it the same.
Also poetic.
It was the same. Yeah, the same thing that he had done. Because he got to face it. It wasn't like they just ran down there, blew it up, and he died. He had to be scared, and he had to face it the way she had to be scared, and he had to face it.
Wow, crazy. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Good stuff, man. Good writing. Good writing right there. So Rocket had gave Yondu the packs to get out of there, right? But he only had one more jetpack and one more spacesuit.
Right.
Yeah.
When he handed it off to Yondu.
Because Yondu was going to save Quill.
Yeah. So Yondu has to grab Quill and get him out of there. And he wears the jetpack, and as he's basically flying off the exploding Ego planet up to the ship, which is already out in space, he puts the spacesuit on Quill and basically just sacrifices himself to save Peter, which is an amazing moment.
Yep. And he gives him the speech on the way up too, and everything like that. That's that moment where Quill realizes, which he even expands on shortly hereafter.
Yeah.
But like the whole time he's been looking for something, he didn't realize it was right there.
Yep.
Because Yondu tells him, I may not be your father, boy, but I am your daddy.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and Peter. I mean, Peter's reaction is just This is totally the feel stuff right here, right? Because Peter is so distraught, and he realizes that, man, he probably squandered the time and all that stuff, and he had been spending all this time looking for his real dad, and then his real dad turned out the way he was, and he had Yondu the whole time and didn't realize it. So it's totally that kind of exactly what we were talking about earlier too. Just that.
Turns out he never was gonna eat him.
Yeah.
Well,
just wanted to know what Terran tastes like.
Yeah, but there's also a little bit here, appreciating what he had doesn't necessarily absolve Yondu of being a bad, what I mean?
You're right.
They kind of,
they both missed out on each other.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what Yondu gets to realize.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that Yondu,
which is exactly why Yondu sacrificed himself, right? Because he says something like
he says that when he does.
Yeah.
I didn't always do it right, but
You're like, this is my chance or something like that. Yeah,
right.
He makes that comment like, this is what I need to do because I screwed this all up basically. So this is my turn to fix it.
Yep. So I'm gonna jump in here because now we're at the feels part.
Yeah.
And now
I've been at the feels part for 40 minutes.
So that's what I because I have like a thesis on this movie.
All right.
So you remember how I came to take down Iron Man 2?
Yes. We'll never forget.
If you don't remember, you can go listen to it in the archives.
That's right. We have it on audio. It's recorded.
I assassinated that movie. For me, whether anybody agrees with me or not. But I feel the opposite of this one because in this movie, so when I said at the beginning this movie is the feelingest Marvel movie, I didn't necessarily mean that it was the strongest feels.
Okay.
Because as much as I love this movie, like I still don't have that moment where I get tingles and chills like when we get the slow pan in New York in Avengers.
Right.
I wouldn't even say I quite get the feeling I get in the first Guardians when they're all holding the Infinity Stone and we get that slow pan back and forth. I don't get that feeling at any point. So what I mean is like this movie is built around the feels.
Yeah.
This movie is all about the feels, and there's a lot of movies where, well, all the movies have some feels in them, and all the movies have some kind of character arc, and usually the character arc is built to, it's almost like the character arc is built to facilitate the plot. Mm-hmm. He has to figure this out so that he can beat Red Skull, whoever, right? And this movie the plot is there to facilitate everybody's character arc. Mm-hmm. The story is solely built on paying off, because these movies are about, and you kind of get a little bit of it in the first Guardians. They talk about it, right? That's kind of Quill's moment where he's like, we're, what I see when I look at us? Losers. Like people who have lost a lot. And that's the thing about the Guardians is like they're all damaged people, and most of them, damaged by abusive parent figures one way or another. And so this whole movie, everybody, you really see it in this movie because everybody is leaning really hard on their damage. Mm-hmm. And the whole movie is really like, we get the big blowout with, ego and everything, and like I'm not saying, it's not like there's not an action climax, but it's all to facilitate everybody's arcs,
right?
Everybody's character development,
and everybody gets that breakthrough.
Everybody,
that I guess maybe not Drax or Groot,
right?
I mean, even Nebula, like even some of the side characters,
Nebula, Yondu,
Kraglin,
right? Everybody has to come to terms.
This movie's thorough.
This movie is so good, and everybody has to come to terms with their feelings, and they do such a good job too of stacking it so that everybody's moment gets time to have its moment.
Yep.
From and they come quick enough that there's a building momentum, but they never bleed into each other. Mm-hmm. So it's a very well constructed in that sense. And also I want to bring out, because you mentioned Drax doesn't get a payoff. That's because Drax doesn't need a payoff.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever, he is the one, damaged as he is, because of his openness, his literalness, he's not pretending he doesn't have damage.
But also, he kind of got his moment a little bit in the first movie, right? Because he had his face off with Ronan.
Right.
He lost.
Yep.
And then kind of had that moment of, but I've got, I lost my family, and I've only been focused on my revenge, and now I've got these new friends.
Yeah.
Like he totally had that moment already.
Yeah, that's which is a great point.
Yeah.
Yep. Although at the end of that, he does still say, it's really Thanos I need to kill.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
That's
and
true.
And as we'll discuss in Infinity Wars, he kind of blows it for him because he's still.
That's true.
Facing that.
Good point.
But also you're right, and also he's like. He can't have that breakthrough because he's not repressed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of his literalness, he's not harboring, he's totally focused on getting revenge, but that's just how it's going to be until he gets revenge.
Yeah.
He's
not fooling himself about that, though.
Exactly.
Right.
He's not he doesn't have a nice little narrative that is telling himself, when he wakes up in the morning and I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
but
we got it.
You got it. But that's what I mean though when I say this is like the feelingest Marvel's movie.
Yeah.
Like this movie is built around the feelings, and also I think it's so smart that they did that because there was no they had the first Guardians, which felt like the culmination of 7 Guardians movies. You know what I mean? it was so so big, and they saved the whole world, and they had a huge space fight, and they had to do the Avengers thing at the end and come together, and held an Infinity Stone. How do you follow that up? How would you make a bigger story than that?
Wow. Yeah.
You can't. So let's make it as personal as possible.
Yes. And the fact that you have this ragtag bunch of hardcore, sarcastic space pirates.
Right.
That you give each one of them an emotional breakthrough throughout this movie, and never at any point do you, for a second, betray any of their characters.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to come back and be something they're not in order to go through this breakthrough.
Yep.
They're already set up for it.
Yeah.
It's very good writing.
Yeah.
Totally. So Yondu's funeral. This is amazing. Right, this is like this is one of those moments that totally gets you.
Yeah.
Because in the fight with Sylvester Stallone earlier in the movie, they had made reference that because of him being on the outs with them, he'll never get what did they refer to it as, like the colors or something like that. They'll never fly the colors at his funeral or something like that. So they kind of make reference that there's this ritual. For any time a Ravager passes, that they do this big celebration sort of send off, and it's disrespectful.
Yeah, which it's got to only be for like top Ravagers, because man, a bunch of Ravagers died in these.
And you're probably right. You're probably right. You might be right. But it's like a ritualistic kind of thing that they do.
Funny.
So,
I'm like, how about all those guys who got jettisoned into space by other Ravagers? Do they get the lights?
So the moment after they cremate Yondu, and you kind of see his dust fly out into space, and then all of a sudden you see all the Ravager ships show up, and they start like blasting off these colorful fireworks and everything, and you like have the moment where Kraglin is like celebrating and crying, and he's just so happy that they showed up.
How did Kraglin become the heart of that?
Yeah, man. And like you just kind of feel his emotion, right? Because you're just like, right there with it, all choked up and everything. And
Quill's giving the big speech, and even Rocket's having his little moment. And, but nope, Kraglin's the one.
Well, it's neat. You kind of feel how close, like he totally was the one that. Always had his back. He always had Yondu's back. He always supported Yondu. So they obviously had some sort of a bond there, right? Like the whole captain first officer thing. So that's pretty cool.
I loved Rocket's moment there too, because he's just sitting there staring out the window, saying, they came. They didn't forget about him at all, even though he was mean to him sometimes, and he stole batteries he shouldn't have. And Quill's just like, of course not.
Harbulary batteries.
They're called harbulary batteries. No, they're not.
Oh my gosh. So that's good stuff. And that's it. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, right? That was pretty much
that's not it. There's still 5 more scenes.
Well, we've got all these post-credit scenes, which we did kind of touch on a few of them.
I don't remember the order. I think the first one was the one with Kraglin and the arrow.
Oh,
because Peter gives him the arrow, says, I think Yondu would have wanted you to have this. And he gets, real emotional about that, too. And then they come into that scene where he's just sitting there whistling, trying to make it move. And, he gets it to lift a little bit.
He's got the fin on his
He's got the fin on,
He gets it to lift a little bit and can't quite get it. And then he gets it to move a little bit and can't quite get it. And then he really hits a groove, and it starts getting moving. And then it just zooms down the hallway, and you just hear Drax start screaming.
At least it just stabbed him and didn't fly through him like everybody else.
And Kraglin just looks around and runs away.
Well, he takes the fin off and runs away. Yeah, that's good stuff. We get the teenager Groot, who's got a messy room, which is ridiculous. I am good. It's just hilarious.
I love it when people who aren't Rocket understand him. I don't know why.
I know. He's like R2-D2 now.
Yeah.
Like everybody always understood R2-D2 also. Now they all just understand Groot. Because he's says something like, "Don't sass me" or whatever. Like he's got that. He's basically telling him to clean up his room and
it's just something about how bad the room smells. I think.
Sitting around playing video games all day, which is good stuff. So I guess the one big important scene, which was their one real world building scene,
the Stan Lee one.
The Stanley one, yeah. The Stanley one's funny, though. He's hanging out with the Watchers. Yeah, that was another thing, because earlier in the movie, we just randomly see the Watchers, in the movie, and you're just like, what? That's crazy. So, yeah, there's that scene where he's just, I love how he's like telling them the stories of all of his different.
He was like saying he was a mailman or
Yeah,
something.
he's like, and this other time I was a mailman.
Yeah.
And then they just like walk away from him like they're just totally over it. Well, because I love it. That's a great scene though, because he says something like,
I have so many more stories.
I have so many more stories to tell.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so great. But the one big scene, the world building scene, is focused back on the leader of the Sovereign, who's because they made a reference earlier in the movie how like when they were having the conversation about procreating,
right?
How they basically build all of their races perfect individuals. They create them. So we've got this scene where she looks like she's been totally like hard at work or whatever because she's all frazzled and everything.
Well, and
right?
because they come in to say something about the High Council wants to see her, and she's like, I think they're upset about how many resources I've wasted because they've had 2 giant fleets blown up in this movie.
Yeah. But she's like looking at the coffin or the cocoon, right? The cocoon, basically saying that she's created the perfect being, the most perfect being, and then like at the end of it, she says, "I think I'll call him Adam," which is our big reference to Adam Warlock, right? So, and that's interesting too because I remember in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, in the Collector's Lair, there's a cocoon in there. And at the time, a lot of people said that was like an Easter egg, saying that was probably Adam Warlock because of the cocoon in there. But now we've got like this true, like this is really apparently going to be Adam Warlock at some point. And that was exciting when we saw it, to the point that like I knew that Adam Warlock has a big role in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in the comics. So I didn't know if there was some way that somehow they were going to rush this along and that was going to have something to do with Infinity War. I don't think that's a thing at this point. No. But they've definitely set him up for something.
Has Captain Marvel basically taken that spot?
It kind of feels that way,
Actually, when the Infinity Gauntlet saga, almost not Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange is kind of more in the role that Adam Warlock was playing because Adam Warlock knew how it all had to play out.
Okay,
and he brought because he brings all the Avengers and all Earth's mightiest heroes to come in and fight Thanos, and Thanos just tears through all of them, just murders them all. And his plan at that point was he was a distraction, and he had the Silver Surfer build up speed from one end of the galaxy to the other, and he was going to try and snatch off the glove while he was fighting the other. Ooh. Yeah, so there was so it's a little bit more.
Which can happen now,
right?
What if that does happen? That's gonna be bomb. I don't even know if that's how Silver Surfer just gets introduced in the MCU, flying by real fast and snatching the gauntlet off of Thanos' hand.
And that's just it?
We win! We win! I am the Silver Surfer. Nice to meet you! Yeah. Credits roll.
Well, spoiler alert, in the Infinity Saga, it was Nebula who saved the day.
So I've had that strong feeling for a while that is exactly where they're going with these movies. Yeah. I mean, she's still alive.
Yep.
And they kind of set her up in Infinity War to be like the one, right? I feel like Nebula's going to get her revenge and she's going to save the day.
Yep.
That's the way I feel. So if they're going to follow that, that's
continuing that.
Yeah.
What is interesting for Adam Warlock following the Infinity Gauntlet, he held on to one of the Infinity Stones for a very long time. He was like the guardian of, I couldn't tell you which one, but he was like
time.
I don't think it was time.
Power.
No.
He's just gonna name them all. Just say yes to one of them.
I think the Reality Stone, but I never actually followed Adam Warlock's comics or anything. I just know
Adam
a little
Warlock
bit.
Had comics?
Yeah.
Yes, dude.
I thought he was just in other comics that people read.
I mean, he had those periods. But anyway, so that could be interesting for him to follow up that post Endgame, to see what they want to do with
I'm
Adam
curious
Warlock.
to see what their plan is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously setting him up for a reason. I mean, so far I feel like all of these things have led to something. Like they have to have something in mind for this. So I'm curious to see where it goes.
So I also we got to talk about. I just love all the just that whole credit
So cool.
All the credits are just a joy to watch.
Yeah.
You know, like they do the stuff where there's people dancing. Did you guys see Goldblum?
Yeah, randomly. I know.
Oh,
I was,
no.
yeah, just like because it's the
Grandmaster.
The Grandmaster is just randomly in the credit sequence.
Wow.
Because like as the credits are scrolling,
How did we not catch that like before?
I know.
I mean, can you tell it's Goldblum?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, it's totally
it's
him.
very clear.
Because as the
it's
credits-
very clearly the
he's
Grandmaster.
just full Grandmaster garb.
I feel like I would remember noticing that, and I
Yeah.
don't understand how I could have possibly.
Yeah.
Well,
missed
because
it over
as
and
the
over
credits
again.
are scrolling, it's like individually on the side of the credits, like Quill will show
Yeah.
up and then he'll like dance and do something,
Yeah.
and then Gamora shows up and dances, and then a little ways down the way, there's the Grandmaster dancing for no reason, and it's just like,
Which
what?
I guess we already would have known he was in Thor.
Oh, well, maybe we would have known he was in
Probably,
Thor. I don't remember.
I don't know.
I don't remember. That seems like that was
don't-
a ways out, man. I mean, we still got like
No, it's a
This is
few months.
The song is amazing though too, right?
a few months.
Isn't it?
No, because we got.
May of
Don't we have?
Spider-Man's next, and
Yeah,
then
Spider-Man
Thor
and then
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Oh, is it that
Yeah.
close? Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Well,
Spider-Man
I
and
guess
then
we
and this
probably
was
would
May.
have.
Spider-Man was
Yeah.
like July, and Thor was November.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So
what do I know?
It's a David Hasselhoff song right here, which is amazing that he sings for the movie, and I love it that his name in the song is Zardu Hasselfrass or whatever, which is what Gamora called him earlier in the movie. Because like in the song, he's like Zardu Hasselfrass, Zardu Hasselfrass. It's amazing. It's so good,
Movies are so good.
so good. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing.
Tops of the head to the bottom of the feet.
Yep. It's going to be interesting when we have to rank all these again because this is
I
definitely.
don't want to.
This is definitely going to be one of my favorites. There's no
Man.
doubt about it. I mean, it's up there right with the first Guardians. for
Pixel
me,
Dance
so.
number one.
It's
Man.
not my number one,
No.
but it's got to be up there. It's
Doc-
top 10 for sure. I
For
feel like-
sure.
For sure, it's top 10.
Hi-
18 of these movies are top 10 for sure.
I know.
Math just doesn't work that way.
That's how I'm going to list it off.
Yeah.
Number 10, Thor Ragnarok. Number 10, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 10, I'm going to do that all the way
Yeah.
until... Yeah.
I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3, which are all going to be a tie, and then I'm going to vote present until we get down to Thor 2.
Until we get down to Thor 2 and Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
They're- Sweet. You guys have anything else you want to add to this one?
I'm sorry that I disparaged the first half of it.
You should
Feel bad.
You should.
The first half tries
You
really
should.
hard, and sometimes it shows.
So I would disagree. I feel like the first half feels like it's trying really hard because it's setting everything up. So you know what I mean? Like they jump so hard into everybody. Like I think I know exactly what you mean. And for the first half, yeah, like, you know, we come back in, they start so hot and heavy, so they're leaning real heavy, and you know, it almost feels like they're trying to overuse Rocket, you know, like well, you know, like they watch the first. It's got that kind of Jack Sparrow feeling, where it's like they watch the first one and they're like,
now
oh,
we know what Rocket and Drax are.
Yeah.
yep, and they're overusing it. But you know, they do that because we gotta really drive home how hard Rocket is trying to push him away, so we can point that out later.
Well, when you stop at halfway,
Yes.
Just don't do that. Don't do that.
I didn't want to.
But I'm saying I'm trying to back you up mostly,
Yeah.
because I get why you feel that way watching the first half. But I am also saying
This
I don't.
is way better than the second Pirates movie.
Man,
A lot.
man, I didn't.
Wow.
I
a
like
lot.
for the record, I was not comparing it to the
No,
second.
I know, yeah. You just said that out loud.
Yeah.
And I went, I remember the second Pirates movie.
I like the second Pirates movie from
I like the second
from a certain
half hour.
point.
From a certain
The
point.
second half hour. I mean the fifth half hour.
Once they get off Cannibal Island, I'm a big proponent of the second.
I like the end of the second
Yeah.
one. It just, ugh. This is not that podcast.
This is not that podcast.
Coming soon
Maybe one day.
to the Geek Easy
oh
near
boy.
you.
Coming soon.
We're setting ourselves up for a lot of... Awesome. All right,
Pirates
guys.
good, yay.
Pirates good, yay. Yo ho, a pirate's life for us.
It's a pirate, the geek pirate,
And really bad
easy.
eggs. the pirate. We'll figure it out. We'll get a better name for that.
Name this show, and you can win a copy of Pixel Dead.
What? Maybe,
Copy of me?
maybe if everybody comments and wants to hear our thoughts on the Pirates franchise, we can just make that a topic on one of the regular
That'd be good.
Geek Easy podcasts.
That'd be good.
Every other Wednesday right here on YouTube. Also available on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes.
Not Spotify.
Not, but Google Play is a
Google
thing.
Play.
Yeah.
That's right. And YouTube.
Yeah, he said YouTube first.
Yeah, I know.
Let's reiterate that, though.
I didn't know that.
Subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Also, you can go and follow us like us on Facebook and comment there and ask us questions, and we'll answer them.
We're
on the regular
probably all on
podcast.
Twitter and
you
I would say Instagram, but I'm not on.
I do not have an account for us on Instagram or Twitter. Usually, I just...
But you can find us.
You can find us on Twitter.
That's
Pixel
what I
Dan.
meant. Jonathan Leonard. Or J Leonard 31.
Yeah,
With an
and-
@ signed in front of it.
Yes, correct. That's how Twitter works, yes.
At Zero Hype Guy for me.
There you go. See? You can find all three of us on there. Yeah,
We're very active.
I'm pretty active.
And he's pretty active.
I'm
I
pretty
used to
active.
be.
I'm
I'm
there
not
a lot.
very active.
I'm
I'm
there
gonna
a lot.
be. I'm gonna be.
Jaron pops on there every now and then to show me funny wrestling clips, and that's always awesome.
I probably won't be. But give me a whirl.
Awesome,
I don't even
guys.
think I have the app.
Jeez, John.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes,
We'll
definitely.
see you next time. Coming up next is Spider-Man Homecoming. So make sure you go and watch Spider-Man Homecoming, and we'll be back to discuss
Be prepared
it.
for some gushing.
Oh, boy. I heart Spider-Man.
I'm just not even going to talk.
Yeah. Jared's just going to let me and John sit here the whole time like, yeah, Thwip, yeah, Spider-Man.
He's just going to wear sunglasses to that episode in case he nods off.
Peter Parker, MJ, woo.
The Geek Easy Podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy Podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy Podcast.